When Stranger Things first began, the only real star power attached to the project was Winona Ryder. At the time, creators Matt and Ross Duffer were largely unknown, having just written and directed the 2015 thriller Hidden, starring Alexander Skarsgård. As relatively new players in the industry, many networks rejected their original vision for Stranger Things, instead pushing for a police procedural version focused on Hopper without the young cast. But Netflix took a chance on the Duffers' risky idea, a series built on 1980s nostalgia, childhood adventure and supernatural horror, and it was Winona Ryder's casting as Joyce Byers that gave the show its credibility and its 1980s connection right from the start. According to Sean Levy, Ryder was the right person to bring the emotional urgency to Joyce, while at the same time showing different sides of the character. Yet as the series expanded its cast across the past decade and escalated its stakes from personal horror to a dimension-spanning apocalypse, Joyce's grounded, more domestic point of view was sidelined and looked antiquated. She went from being the only person sharp enough to see the unnatural truth about Will's disappearance to being duped by Robin with the term flux capacitor. Stranger Things' final season truly gave up on Joyce, and the Duffer brothers lost any clear understanding of what her purpose was after season 1.
I have been waiting here over an hour, Hopper.
And I apologize. Again.
I'm going out of my mind.
Look, a boy his age, he's probably just playing hooky. Okay?
No, not my Will. He's not like that. He wouldn't do that.
No, you never know. I mean, my mom thought I was on a debate team, and really I was just screwing Chrissy Carpenter in the back of my dad's old
No,
deal, so.
Look, he's not like you, Hopper. He's not like me. He's not like most.
Joyce Byers was the beating heart of the first season of Stranger Things. She makes the vanishing of Will Byers devastating and completely believable, with her conviction that something supernatural has happened to her son when no one else believes it. The town of Hawkins dismisses her as hysterical and ostracizes her for being divorced and working class, but Joyce pushes Hopper to investigate and ultimately journeys into the Upside Down to rescue Will herself. Her emotional intensity and persistence defines the season and establishes Joyce as one of the most important and compelling characters in the show. Winona Ryder's performance is a major reason the series broke out of obscurity and into mainstream popularity. Netflix was still in its infancy when Stranger Things made its debut in July 2016, but Joyce became an emotional entry point for audiences to connect with the series. However, as it progressed, Joyce's role steadily diminished. She becomes increasingly passive, no longer the active force in the fight against evil, but as an overprotective, anxious mother reacting from the sidelines. By season 2, her role is largely confined to caretaking and coddling, aiding Will when he is possessed by the Mind Flayer, and not letting him be with his friends without his brother as a chaperone. It has become a running joke that she refuses to let Will help defeat Vecna while being perfectly comfortable letting Jonathan put himself in danger. Unlike other characters who are given clear narrative trajectories, as the show moves towards its conclusion, Joyce is left without a focused arc beyond being a perpetually worried mother. By the time the finale arrives, Stranger Things no longer knows how to integrate her into its climax, and it glaringly shows. Joyce is present throughout season 5, but she is never in the foreground. In volume 1, her primary storyline revolves around worrying about Will, eventually leading to a long overdue argument. Will, now friends with Robin and on a journey of self-discovery, confronts Joyce and tells her that while he is her son, he has grown up and has become his own person. He asks her to allow him to experience life, grow in self-confidence and be independent. Joyce agrees that she has been underestimating him, and this realization directly leads to Will discovering his abilities as a sorcerer, the capacity to channel the hive mind, access Henry's powers, and use them to destroy Vecna from within. Joyce later goes back to consoling Will when he is once again shamed by Vecna's hallucinations, showing his friends abandoning him for being gay. She is present during his coming out scene, offering support in just 2 lines, reinforcing just how muted her role has become. Joyce is present for some of the most important emotional moments of the final season, but is not allowed to shape them.
Joyce! Is that stupid play of yours?
Better see you there, Harrington.
Friday night? You wish.
Stranger Things 5 could have explored Joyce's relationship with Henry Creel. Outside of her family, Joyce Byers is most often looked at as an outcast in society, similar to the rest of the party. She does not have an independent life outside of motherhood, and her identity becomes increasingly relational, first as Bob Newby's girlfriend in Season 2, then as Hopper's. Even in Season 4, when Joyce embarks on an adventurous quest with Murray to rescue Hopper from a Russian gulag, the story remains fundamentally tied to her finding a man. Joyce's narrative value from the secondary season anchored her to romance rather than agency, and this continued all the way into Season 5's 40-minute epilogue. There is, however, one intriguing and deeply underexplored relationship involving Joyce in season 5 that highlights just how much narrative potential was left on the table. In one of Henry Creel's memories from school, Joyce appears briefly advertising an amateur performance of Oklahoma. While the show never explicitly explains this moment, Max shares to Eleven and Callie in the finale that Joyce went to high school with Henry, Hopper, and the future Mr. and Mrs. Ted Wheeler. This connection is never explored or even acknowledged within the series itself. At no point does Joyce hear the name Henry Creel and think that's that troubled guy from high school. Instead, the critical context exists outside the show in the canonical stage play Stranger Things: The First Shadow, where Henry's backstory and his school years, alongside the adult characters, are fully explored. But the play can only be seen in New York or London, meaning that the vast majority of Netflix viewers worldwide have no access to this information. So Henry's memory involving Joyce feels disconnected and underdeveloped. Season 5 never addresses why Henry targeted the Byers family and others in that same social circle. The high school connection could have been explored in deeply satisfying ways that grew Joyce's character in her own right away from her family.
Mom.
Yeah.
Thank you for trusting me.
Kill the bastard.
Joyce's significance to the story is not all lost, as the Duffer Brothers give Winona Ryder final outstanding moment in the season 5 finale. Steve Harrington's final plan of Operation Beanstalk does see Joyce travel with the rest of the group into the Upside Down, and later into the Abyss, but you do have to look closely. She spends most of the mission in the background, and is never meaningfully involved in strategy or decision-making, while other characters are given clear direction. Nancy fills the role in the final fight that could have easily belonged to Joyce in the earlier seasons. She uses herself as bait when the tree turns upside down and the Mind Flayer takes physical form. Joyce does, however, receive one final, undeniably powerful moment in season 5 when Vecna unexpectedly begins to stir after being impaled on a spike inside the body of the Mind Flayer. She steps forward, delivers the most delicious F-bomb in the entire series, and brutally beheads him with an axe, shouting, "You fucked with the wrong family." Her strikes intertwine with flashbacks for each character showing the ways in which Henry harmed them individually. This did mean the beheading took several prolonged swings in order to accommodate the entire cast, but given that Vecna has spent months teasing the audience with the promise of one last time, it only feels fair that he finally gets a taste of his own medicine. This scene is essentially Joyce's single defining moment in the final season. In the 40-minute epilogue of the finale, Joyce's story takes a new direction, and she and Hopper are finally shown on a date at Enzo's, which has been hinted at since season 3. Now as a settled and committed couple, Hopper reveals that he has been offered a raise and a promotion to police chief in Montauk, New York. With both Will and Jonathan away at college and no longer tied to Hawkins, Hopper suggests that they start over somewhere new together, and Joyce appears fully on board. Joyce's identity has long been defined by motherhood and by survival, but the epilogue suggests that her role as a mother is now complete, and that she can transition into a new phase of life, even if that transition is still framed almost entirely through a man. The epilogue does leave the door open for Joyce to finally do something for herself, even if we never find out what she wants, who she is now, or how she understands the years of suffering endured by her family. Ultimately, Joyce Byers exits Stranger Things very differently from how she began it. Once the emotional core of the series, her role gradually shifted away from driving the narrative to taking care of her family and finally finding peace. While Winona Ryder is never again given the same emotional weight she held in season 1, the epilogue reframes Joyce's ending as a happy one, and she is rewarded with the chance to move forward with Hopper and begin a new life no longer defined by fear.